Hey, my name is Carl Murphy, president and co-founder of Spiffy. And today on Operations Underground, we're going to talk to Kris Marshall about his career at Spiffy and how he's getting it done here at Spiffy. Kris, welcome.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me.
Hey, Kris, tell me about when you joined the Spiffy team and what the story's like.
Uh, when I started, what was the story like? That was the question. I went out.
Yeah, where did you start with Spiffy?
Yes, sir. Yeah, I started with Spiffy in Charlotte, and the time I started, it was just Raleigh and Charlotte. And I think Charlotte was only open for maybe 7 months to a year, and that's when I started at Spiffy. Started as a detail technician, and that was start.
Yeah, back in like 2016.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, and how did you find us back then? What was your first interaction with Spiffy, and how did that go down?
Yeah. So my first interaction was I actually sold a washer and dryer to one of the sales guys back then. His name was Ryan Sanderson, and he commended me for able to increase his budget for a washer and dryer for him at home. And he actually tried to tried to interest me into being in sales at Spiffy, had me going to a couple meetings with him. And when I seen him talk, and I just like, Ryan, I don't think I'm gonna be able to do that. He was like, well, I was like, do you have any other positions? He was like, well, we have detail technicians. I was like, I'll try it. I have no problem. He's like, oh, okay, well, report here. Here's your interview. And when I got in my mind, of course, I had never heard of Spiffy. So I was thinking like, man, they must be cleaning just very nice cars. That's why I never see the vans or anything like that. So I'm expecting Porsches, Ferraris, Land Rovers. And the first car was a minivan. Second car was a Jeep Wrangler with trash exploded in it. And I was just like, well, here's the reality of what I'm going to be doing.
Mm-hmm. Nice. Hey, so interesting. So you were working at it was Sears, right? Is that where you're working?
Yes, sir.
Where were you selling appliances?
I was selling appliances at Sears.
Yeah.
Yes.
So tell me about what. Yeah. Tell me about like 12 to 14-year-old Kris Marshall. Like, where'd you grow up, and then how'd you get to Sears selling appliances, and then run into Ryan Sanderson?
Yes, sir.
What's that? You know, early life of Kris Marshall.
Yes. Early life of Kris Marshall. I was truly addicted to video games, sports, and just being outside. I actually played middle school and high school football. I was also actually in the ROTC. Also, did Army ROTC. After high school, well, even before high school was over, my mom was always reminding me, as the older I get, she's like, "Yeah, you're gonna have to be out the house at 18." I was like, "Okay, mom, I got you. I'm making a plan so I can go ahead and be out the house at 18." I wasn't comfortable with having an apartment or anything at 18, so I went off to school and went to Salem State. Went there for a marketing degree. I didn't finish. I'm not proud to say that, but didn't finish. I messed up that opportunity. So when I came back home from that, my mom was on the same time. She said, "You have 3 months to get back out the house again." So I started looking for jobs. I started working at Target where I was unloading the truck at night. After Target, I started working at Walmart doing the same unloading. I was like, this is not really the place for me, but it's paying the bills right now. It's keeping my mom off my back. It's working out. After Walmart, I began to start working at a Dunkin' Donuts where I was managing a Dunkin' Donuts, but then I also was making the donuts at night. So I'm literally going in at probably 11 o'clock at night, making donuts till 4 in the morning. And then I started the first shift at 5:30 in the morning at Dunkin' Donuts. That started really just getting in my way, and I wasn't making any kind of money there. So I got into the Sears, and at Sears, I was just doing the same kind of thing, unloading. I was unloading trucks. I was loading trucks. I was building refrigerators. I even was on the moving team where we were putting refrigerators and washing dryers in the houses. But I would always go out to the floor because the easiest way for me not to have to build refrigerators, I can go out there and talk to customers and try to sell a refrigerator. The salespeople started noticing that. They moved me to the sales team. I started doing good. Then I got promoted to sales manager. And then as a sales manager, that's when I didn't meet Ryan Sanderson first. I actually met his wife first. I sold her. She had to go back home, get him. He came back in the next day and he was like, "You're not going to make me budge on my price." And I was like, "Well, let me talk to you, Ryan. Let me explain why you probably need to go ahead and change the budget a little bit." I was able to get him two. He didn't even want matching washers and dryers in the beginning, which was just mind blowing to me. But I was able to get him matching washers and dryers, and he was like, "That was impressive."
That's funny. So Ryan Sanderson was our second sales rep, our first sales rep in Charlotte, and he came to us from the military, and he did a bunch of operation stuff. Back in so Kris joined the company. We were two cities. I mean, we maybe had 10 trucks, like 5 in Raleigh and 5 in Charlotte, sort of thing. And there's an interesting story about Charlotte. Like we were, Scott and I, my partner and I, were trying to raise some money, and there's a lot of companies doing services and technology mashups, right? Like, hey, we're going to do this service, but we're going to add this technology to it to make it more efficient and grow faster, all that sort of thing. And all the investors are like, look, we've done this before. You guys, right, the founders, go to a city and like you're successful in your hometown, but we send you somewhere else and like you failed miserably on city 2 because you didn't know the city. There was some random reason why you were successful in that one town. You can't do that in 50 cities. Prove to us you can expand. So we literally, like, we had no intention of really going to Charlotte. And we're like, well, if we're going to go raise money from the outside and we want to grow, we got to go to Charlotte and open up the city. So we went down there. We hired a couple. We hired Ryan Sanders was one of them, and he was just so fired up about the opportunity. Ex-military guy, came from Starbucks. It's interesting, sort of the folks that are attracted to Spiffy and sort of their career path. So I always ask people, like, hey, how'd you get here? Because it's interesting the variety of places that people come from. So you sold Sanderson 2 washers and dryers that matched, and he got you a job as a detail tech in Charlotte. So what was that like when you first started? Tell the listeners about that.
Well, my first day I started. I mean, I went through training, but my first day by myself is when I really consider my first self starting. My first day out in the field by myself, it was the first customer actually was a friend of Matthew Warner, and in my mind, I was like, wow, this is going to be the quickest job I ever had because this man's probably not going to think I can clean his car good, and it's just not going to work out that good. Come to find out, I started cleaning. It was, like I said, it was a minivan. It was disgusting. Almost halfway through the service, he comes back outside, and he said, "What's your name again?" And I was like, oh, gosh, he must be on the phone with Matt right now telling him who I am and how I'm doing. I'm thinking I might not be doing a good job. He came right back outside, and he had a check wrote for $100 tip for the service. And at that point, I was just like, what else does Spiffy have to offer? Let me keep this day going. I didn't think it was that bad. Then the second customer I go to, it was a Jeep Wrangler. Trash exploded in it, and she left it in there for 5 months. She was doing good, so she was able to just take her other car, leave that car still. I got all the trash out, cleaned up everything. I started finding just random change in the car. It ended up being like a huge bucket's worth of change. So at the end of the service, she thought it was amazing. And she said, well, for the tip, would you like the bucket of change, or would you like me to go get you a tip? So I'm kind of like weighing my options. I'm looking at the jug. I'm trying to guess how much money could the jug.
You're like looking at, hey, how so what'd you choose? It's like a lottery.
So I'm like looking at it. I'm like, I see a lot of quarters. I see pennies, maybe some dimes, and I'm trying to count it in my head like it's a guessing game. And I was just like, let me go for the tip. So I gave her back all the change, and she came back out with $100 bill. And I was like, I feel like I made the best choice I've made in a long time.
Nice.
And I just kept going at Spiffy after that.
For sure. Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, tips. It's interesting. So for the young employees, like the wash detail side. So today, about 2/3 of our business, 75%, is like maintenance work. We're doing oil changes, tires, brakes, all that sort of stuff, primarily for fleets. And then like 1/3 of our business is consumers where we go clean cars, right? And on the consumer side, we have like two kinds of customers. We have customers that wash your car all the time. You show up, that car's pretty clean. Right? It's dirty, but like it's not that dirty, right? At least in the Spiffy world. And then we have customers like it looks like they had a food fight in the car, right? Like they have four college kids who had a food fight, right? And then they probably left something that smells if you bake it, and then maybe they moved some goats with the car, right? So it's covered in hair, right? So you get like the goat herder family food fight is sort of like what happens. And we try not to give those services to new employees just because like it's somewhat, if you don't have like the right mindset around it, it's like debilitating. It's like you come up and like, I'm never going to get this car clean, right? Like, because we have time specs, right? So every service has a different time. Like, you get an hour to do this one, you got 2 to do this, you got 4 to do this. And invariably, sometimes the goat herders don't buy enough service sometimes. And so guys like Kris got to get in there, get it done. And that's always challenging, but it becomes very rewarding. And then there's like the big payoff. Like you get paid well, but then there's a tip, which is sort of the icing on the cake, which keeps folks around. That's good stuff. So what else? So like if I'm someone listening to the podcast who's considering coming to work at Spiffy, what was it like for you in the first couple of months, the first year as a technician at Spiffy? Like how would you describe that job to them? Say, hey, look, this is the job you're going to get, and this is why you want to stay here. Or like, if you don't like this stuff, like, you should go do something else. How would you describe that?
I would really describe my first year as a roller coaster ride. You have your takeoff, you have your dips, you have your loops, but at the end of that roller coaster, you're gonna be like, I want to go ride it again, because you just had that much time. You have your good, you have your bad. Of course, you have your days where you're frustrated, and I'm thinking like, maybe this is not for me. And then 6 o'clock roll around, and I'm right back at it again. I was like, it's not that bad. Let's keep going. So I think my first year, I would just really describe it as a roller coaster. Enjoy the ups, enjoy the downs, and by the end of it, you're going to want to keep doing it again. That's what I would say.
Yeah, so what are some of the downs, right? So again, like I'm a kid in Charlotte, and I'm like thinking about interviewing for a position that we have open there. Like, what's a down? Like, what's hard? What are down things? You've run, you've been in 3 different cities for us. You've managed a lot of people. Like, why don't people like it? Like, what causes that? What screws with the employee's head, right?
A lot of times, I think it's just the weather. I think my first summer was probably my first trying summer because I wasn't used to working outside. Like I said, I never was really like a big car guy, but I was always raised that hard work pays off. So that's why I never really shied away from anything at Spiffy. But I would want to say the heat, that first late service you get to where you think you're getting out of here earlier, probably like at 3 o'clock, and then that 4 o'clock awesome hits the board. And one of my best times was I had a 3:30 awesome. It was the end of the summer. A lady had 3 kids, and when she gave me the key, she told me good luck, and she said baseball season had just ended. So it was cleats, dirt, bats. It was everything in there.
Sand.
Yes. It was everything.
Smells like 13-year-old baseball player.
So I would say I would say the heat.
Yeah.
That first late service you get. Sorry.
Yeah, well, like you played football, right? Like you grew up in Charlotte, you played football, right? Like you did practice in August, right? But how's it different? Like you're an athlete, and you're like an 18-year-old or 17-year-old high school athlete. Like you're like pretty fit, and you're used to being outside. How's it different at Spiffy versus that?
I think as an athlete, you're only, if you're at practice, you maybe have 2-a-day practices, but practice lasts from 3 o'clock to 6 o'clock, something like that. At Spiffy, you're in at 8 in the morning and you're getting off at 5 in the afternoon. So I think probably the biggest thing was just the longevity of the day, and you being outside that long was probably my first real struggle, I think I would say.
Yeah. Yeah, I tell people it's like it's not as hard physically as you think it is. It's just longer, right? It's like it's a marathon, not a sprint. Like you don't need to be able to lift 1,000 pounds or bench press 250, but you got to be able to lift a 20-pound bucket of water and you know carry it a lot, right? You got to be able to stand on your feet. Like I was talking to a young guy who just working for us in Raleigh. I said, "Well, what's the hard part?" Like, my feet are sore. I said, "Well, like you have a problem? You get hurt?" He's like, "No, no, I just never stood for 8 hours straight." And you don't think about that again. Like today in school, you go to sports, right? Like people, like you're going to stand up for 8 hours. Like that's pretty much, then you're going to move a little bit. And again, in any given event's like not that hard, but it's just like sort of grind, right? The day-to-day thing. Um, yeah, good stuff. So what are some of either the harder things or the wackier things? Like there's got to be some good Kris Marshall stories, whether it was Charlotte or DC. We'll talk about DC in a little bit, but like tell me like a story that like you came home to your girlfriend and like you would not believe what happened today.
Okay, yeah. So I had one day at one of our sales, which is recurring service locations, and it was this place called Innovation Park, to where I don't know how big this place was. It was probably like a good mile built RSL area, and
Yep.
you're getting cars from across the parking
Yeah.
lot. You get some close to you. I'm sorry. Oh, okay, but yeah. So I was doing some cars, and I had this one Audi. It was an Audi A4. It was all black. He wanted to spiffy and shine. He said, "I've never let nobody else wash my car. Don't mess it up." And he was just real stern. And I was like, "Oh man, here we go. Maybe I won't be able to do a good job." When I finished it, he came and looked at it, and his first question was, "How long are you going to be here?" And I was like, "Boss, I still got like 5 more cars across this RSL. I'm here all day." And he came back around 3 o'clock with like a $50 tip that he went to the bank, left work, went to the bank, came back, found me. And he said, "From here on out, I want you to be the only one cleaning the car." So I think that was probably one of my best times at Spiffy, because it just showed that I cared a lot about the car. He enjoyed the work, and I enjoyed the reaction that he had also.
Yeah, that's probably one of the more satisfying things of Spiffy. And then before Spiffy, my partner and I, we owned a couple car washes, and it's it's incredibly satisfying to see people's cars to see their reaction to the car being clean. Um, and it sort of keeps people around the industry. And I know a lot of folks who are, they own car washes, they work in car washes, and it's just like it's that that smile and that awe factor. I don't think people really realize how clean a car can get. If a professional cleans the car with the right soap, the right chemicals to get the carpet clean. Like I've like taken spots out of cars and like it's like squirt, squirt, wipe, and they're like, "How'd you do that? That's magical." I'm like, I don't know. It's like carpet cleaning condition, carpet soap, right? We do this for a living. We're supposed to clean cars, and so uh, it's an interesting thing. Like when you talk to folks that are around a while, like I just like that feeling, like the satisfaction that a customer gets from a clean car. We don't. It's sad, sort of on the oil change side of things. You don't get that, because it's just sort of like you change the oil. Like our oil change customers are like, how do we grind out more? You did 20 today. Can you do 25 or whatever it might be? So it's interesting. I think it's something that certainly we got to talk to new hires more about. Like you want to get like that daily job satisfaction. Like people get fired up, and then there's just this energy. Like that guy went out of his way to give you some money. Like he probably had 10 or 20, $10 or $20 in his pocket. He could have given you a tip, but he was just like so fired up about it. It's a nice, again, super nice feeling, and you don't get that everywhere. Like you don't get that at the loading dock at Walmart, right? You got to be face to face with the customers, and so it's nice. Um, so you became a supervisor in Charlotte. So tell me about how you got promoted and sort of what that job's like versus say just being a technician? Like, what was the difference for you there?
Yes, sir. Well, I got promoted into a supervisor in my second year, probably, I want to say going into the middle of my second year. That's when I got promoted. It's because I cared a lot. So it was like, I wanted to always have 5 stars. I always wanted, at that point in time, we were even giving out gift cards at the end of the week. Whoever had the most 5 stars. I was competitive. I mean, I played sports. So it was like, what do I need to do to be at the top? So, after that, he kind of pulled me to the side. He was like, how would you feel about maybe being the closing supervisor? You close up the shop. You say you help the guys when in the field and they don't know what they're doing. I was like, I have no problem doing that. I was like, Matt, this is probably the best job I've had in my life. I've been in warehouse buildings. I've been working overnight. I've been working from 11 at night to 8 in the morning. I said, I'm willing to do whatever you really need me to do at this point. So he promoted me to closing supervisor. I started closing. I started making sure techs knew what they were doing. I would help them whenever they needed help. And that just easily grew into going into a more of a Monday through Friday supervisor. I want to say like the number 2 behind the GM because we had a couple supervisors, but I moved up in the ranks of supervisors pretty fast. Then my GM left. Kevin Dooley came in, and me and Kevin Dooley, it was almost like it was meant to happen almost because I just enjoyed him from the first moment I met him. Like he was honest, he was very clear, and he would help you if you wanted help. And I felt like sometimes before I didn't get the right help when I wanted to continue to grow. And Kevin was always there to help me grow. And he was just very honest, and I needed honesty. And he was that guy. So then after that, I kind of grew into like maybe his number 2 guy in Charlotte. And then after that, I just always wanted to keep learning. I always wanted to keep learning anything that's fit. Anytime we had any kind of new training, we would just wash, and then oil got introduced. It's like, you ever done oil before? I say no, but I'm willing to learn. Tire rotations got introduced. Diesel oil changes were introduced. I wanted to learn everything because the more I learn, it's like the better I'm going to be, and it just keeps me interested in the company. As long as we continue to grow and I keep learning new things, it just makes it amazing for me.
Yeah, I think that's a common trait among the successful folks is they're just hungry for more knowledge and more opportunity. It's like, look, I'll take it, I'll grind it out. I'm interested. It's not the opposite is, okay, it's 4 o'clock, I gotta go home, right? Or I don't want to do anything, or I'm here to just wash 5 cars and get out of here, sort of thing. So interesting, super interesting. So we promoted you and moved you to Washington, D.C. Tell me the story behind that and remind me how that went down. I was involved in that, Bill was involved in that, and it all sort of went down pretty quick. Tell me what happened there.
Well, I used to always
tell listeners what happened. I know what happened.
Yes, I've always wanted to just like continue to grow at Spiffy. So I'm always having these conversations with Kevin, like, Kevin, what do I need to do to continue to grow? Do I need to try to join a traveling team? What do I need to continue to grow? And he said, Kris, you're doing everything right. He said, email Carl Murphy and let him know that you want to continue to grow. And my eyes got big and I was like, no, why? Shouldn't you talk to him about that? He was like, Kris, trust me, email him, tell him that you want to grow, and we'll go from there. So I emailed him. I was literally training the guy, and he was waxing the car, and I sent the email, and Kevin called me back 30 minutes later, and I'm thinking like, Kevin, what's going on? Like, I'm still training. He was like, yeah, I just got off the phone with Carl Murphy. He said you can either go to Miami or DC. And I was like, whoa, that was fast. So my family, I knew I'd be close to my family if I went to DC. If I went to Miami, I wouldn't be close. And I was also a Washington Redskin fan, so that was another reason. I was like, DC was the way to go. I can go see the football team. I can continue to grow with Spiffy. I'm growing, and it made perfect sense to me. And that's why I went to DC.
Yeah, you went to DC when they were the Redskins, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
You saw the Redskins, right? Not the Washington football team or the Commanders as they've evolved, right? It's interesting, super interesting. Yeah. So so that's how that goes down at Spiffy, right? Like if you're a hardworking guy with some leadership ability and you're ready to go, be careful what you ask for, but we'll put you on a plane and send you there to get stuff going. There's a lot of folks like Kris who got a phone call 30 minutes after they said they wanted to move and get promoted somewhere. So it's something we take a lot of pride in, being able to grow and serve customers at the speed and quality that we do. That provides a lot of opportunity for us, right? And Kris didn't say this, but he's like, look, hey, Kevin, when are you leaving Charlotte? Kevin's like, I'm not leaving Charlotte, dude. And so Kris is like, okay, well, if I want to get promoted, I got to go somewhere else because, otherwise I'm going to be working for Dooley for the next 5 years or whatever it might be. And so, he saw that opportunity. He was young and flexible and moved out, right? And so then you went to DC, and DC was a little challenging, right? Like it wasn't like, hey, this place is perfect, just don't screw it up, right? It was like, hey, we need a little course correction in DC. Tell the listeners about what it was like and sort of what you did differently when you showed up to really get that place going. It became a very, very successful city very quickly, due in large part to sort of a couple of fundamental things that you were getting after. What'd you do up there?
Yeah, well, when I first got there, we haven't discussed this, but a lot of times oil guys don't want to wash, and wash guys don't want to do oil. So me going into DC, and they had all lines of business. It was B2C wash, it was fleet, it was oil, and I had two oil guys that did not want to wash. So my biggest struggle in the beginning was just finding the right staff that would just really believe in what I was trying to get to and really would just lock into the plan that I had for DC. First couple months, I couldn't get anybody. And I was just like, guys, I can't find anybody. I need help with finding just good people, because I knew that if you find the good people, everything will start making sense and everything will start turning around. So I got rid of those guys. The next couple guys weren't good either. Yeah. But then I just got a batch of 3 guys, and they were amazing. They were locked into what I was trying to do. And I started to see the change. I was able to get weekends off. People were coming to work. People were enjoying the work. They enjoyed the pay that they were getting. But they were still a little bit younger. So, of course, like one of the guys, he moved back to North Carolina from DC. Another one went to school. And I was like, I will never find these good people again. What's going on? And then 3 more hit the door. And I was just like, I must be lucky, or I need to go play the lottery or something. So once I really got those good guys and they were just really locked in what I was trying to do, it just became so smooth because it was a team and we were all on the mission to make DC amazing.
Yeah, I think that's a commonality across the company, is like just finding good folks and good folks. They got to believe in the Spiffy mission, right? They got to believe in the work we're doing. They got to have the same values you do. Like, we talk about clearing the lots, and sometimes clearing the lots means, staying an extra hour. Sometimes it means working at night. Sometimes it means working on a holiday. And from a cultural standpoint, we say customer first, employee always, so we try to balance those. But sometimes you just got to like grind it out. Like we talk about grinding, and if you want that sort of team and you like that sort of culture, then Spiffy is a great place. If you don't want that team and you don't like that culture, then Spiffy is like it's like the worst place for you. And it's interesting, like we have a lot of people who just love working here, and then we're growing so fast. We're hiring people every week, right? Every Tuesday we're putting a lot of people into the company. And the Spiffy antibodies really like attack the people that have bad culture. It's like, dude, like you need to like get on your back and change oil. Like, hey, it's 3:30. Well, yeah, your truck's not clean. You need to like tighten that up before you go home. And whatever the extra 5% is, like it's just people like Kris and like Kris's team do that stuff. And so it's interesting. And the thing that really gets guys locked in, you talked about this earlier, Kris, like you send an oil tech out on a wash detail assignment after you train them and they get a nice tip. Like they don't get tips for changing oil, right? Like, especially for fleets. Like there's generally nobody out there. We put all these like controls around and take a picture of this, take a picture of that, take a video, snap, scan this, scan that. So there's all this like performance tracking because no one's there, but on the consumer side, like you're in their driveway in a lot of cases, right? Or you're at their office and they come out and it's like this wow factor and they just like are so appreciative of the hard work, but you're generally standing there soaking wet. Like even in the winter, you put on a good sweat to get those cars clean. And it's just like so satisfying. And so we got to tell more story like that to the new hires, Kris, because I think that's the people who want that, like that feedback and aren't willing to put the work in. It's a great place to, they want to come to work on Monday morning and they don't have those sorts of issues. So then from DC, you got offered the position to take over Atlanta. Now Atlanta is like our second largest city in both people and trucks and in revenue. It's growing like 300% a year. Like the growth rate is sort of like wacky. Atlanta growth rate is like, it drives me to say like, be careful what you ask for. And so how did that go down? And tell me what that was like.
Yes, sir. Actually, I guess me working with Kevin doing so much, he always worked. He always had his phone. So it's like when he was on vacation, he would still buy his phone. And I was the same way when I was on vacation. So I went on vacation and I was in the Dominican Republic and he called me and he said, Kris, if Atlanta was, offered, would you take it? I say, Kevin, I will pack up this vacation right now and start packing up for Atlanta. Because I started when it was just two cities, and when Atlanta opened, I said to myself, a couple of technicians that I knew, and my family, I say, if I ever get the opportunity, Atlanta will be the place where I would love to continue to grow at Spiffy. So when he said that to me and I'm on vacation, I went right back to Kris my first year, and I was like, it's happening. I was like, Kevin, I will pack everybody up. We'll get on the next flight, and I'm on the way. He's like, no, slow down. It's not that fast, but if you got the opportunity, would you take it? And I said yes, and then here I am.
Nice. Yeah. That's how it happens. Yep. Yeah, and so when you went to Atlanta as the GM, so tell the listeners what it's like. Okay, I'm going into a city. It's like this big bear, 25 trucks, 40 employees, but a lot of stuff going on. Like what are you thinking about when you're going in there, and like what's like the first day, like the first week, like what are you thinking about? What are you doing? What's on your priority list? Like just talk about that. We talked about it before. I'd love for you to share that with the listeners. It's like very powerful.
Yes, sir. Well, when I first got to Atlanta, I was just like chomping at the bit. Like Kevin was like, Kris, don't go here. Kris, don't go to the CBU. Don't do this. And I broke all the rules. I was ready to go out and I'm doing site inspection. I'm pulling up on text and I'm calling Kevin. I was like, Kevin, he's running behind. Like, can I help him so we can get him back on time? Kevin said he doesn't know you and you're just going to go out there and start washing the car with him. I was like, okay, that makes sense. Not the best idea. So then I was still just wanting to keep working. I went to the CBU. I met my supervisors and I started meeting a couple of technicians. But one of the most common things I noticed when I first got there was probably no one was in uniform. And people were just wearing all these outrageous colors. And I was like, where's the black pants? Where's the Spiffy shirt? Why do I have guys in here with a red hat on and green pants and all this kind of craziness? So I knew as soon as I seen that, I was like, okay, I know some of the first steps I need to make. First, they need to show up. They need to be on time and they need to be in uniform. Because I've been hearing that my whole time at Spiffy. Those are some of the main things. And then you also want to care. So I told my supervisor, I said, look, guys, I'm here for this week. I need to go move the next week and I'll be back at the end of the week. But I said, everybody needs to be in uniform by the time I get back. Once I got everyone in uniform, then I started picking out who didn't want to work. Of course, they'll always let you know. It's the ones that's always calling out and never have any kind of reasons for them calling out. Once I got that nipped in the bud, I started tackling the tardies. I was like, look, guys, you want to come to work, you need to show up on time because everything is time-based. If we show up on time, we can show up to the next service on time and we can keep going. So once I started fixing those, then I just started to care. I just started to care about the technicians. Some of the main things they told me were it was just like they felt so disconnected from the management before. I was like, well, I'm a completely different person, and I just started to care about the guys. I was just taking care of them. You start hearing all kind of horror stories, and between me putting them in uniform, getting them to show up on time, and just caring about them, I'm able to say that I was able to start directing and getting into the right direction.
Yeah, it's it seems simple, yet it's hard. And it's like this foundational discipline that really that sets the tone for everything else, right? So, so Spiffy sells convenience, right? And that's like being, part of that's like being on time. You can't be convenient if you show up late, right, to your client, whether it's a consumer or a fleet. And then there's this like, we have a way of doing things that's standardized, and the guy in Charlotte's doing a service the same way, the guy in Atlanta's doing the same way, Seattle the same way. Someday we're going to be in Paris and Berlin and Dubai, and they're all going to wash cars the same way. They're all going to change oil the same way. They all rotate tires the same way. We use the same software, and there's this mindset where like if the employee shows up late and out of uniform, like you don't have to do it. You don't have to do it our way. You can just do whatever the hell you want, right? And then they go out to work, and then the time standards don't matter, right? Well, hey, you got an hour to do this service. Like, I'll take an hour and a half, right? You got an 8-hour day and 6 services at an hour and a half a piece, like, or 5 services. It catches up quickly. You get behind, customers unhappy, then you're circling back, and there's just this chaos that begins when employees show up late and out of uniform. It's like, it's just so incredibly simple and foundational, yet it's one of the things that I think new managers come from the outside certainly have some challenges with. Kris, you benefit from having been born and raised, well, not born here, but like sort of raised in the Spiffy culture, right? Like you came here, 5 years, right? Like you got a glass penguin for your 5-year anniversary, right? We give out these little glass penguins. 5-year anniversary. It's a blown glass thing, and there's like a whole story about where those came from. But that's a lot of cars in 5 years, and it just starts with show up on time and be in uniform, and then the rest of it sort of falls into place. So you have in Atlanta as the general manager, you have several, we call them operation supervisors, the folks that help you out. How do you manage them? How do you make them efficient? Like, how do you think about that? And what advice could you give to someone else whose city grows as much as Atlanta did, and they need to really, be able to up their leadership and management game, and manage something that's 2 to 3 times bigger than it was last year? How do you do it, and what advice would you give them?
I would say placement and accountability. So I guess in the sports world, it's like if I have a LeBron James, then I need him to do LeBron James things. If I have a player that's not so much that good, then I need to not have him doing a LeBron James duty, and he's not LeBron James. So my biggest thing with my supervisor was I'm putting them where they're good at. If you're good with the mechanicals and fixing the vans, I will put you there. If you're good with working with these guys at the fix site, if you're good with, managing the vans that are not oil, or managing all vans and keeping that, but it was just all really about putting them where they're really good at and not trying to make them do every single thing, but then also holding them accountable also. One of the things that when I first got here was everybody said they had their hands in this. It's so many times where I would go pull up on go see a technician, and he'd be like, oh, well, before you, I would usually have 3 supervisors call me and ask the same exact question. I was like, well, I bet you that's frustrating. And he was like, yeah, it is. So I just I put people where they were good at, and I held people accountable for the mistakes they had, and also held them accountable for the good things they did. And I think that was a real major reason for in the beginning why I was able to get it going so fast, was placing people where they need to be placed.
Yeah. It's the separation of duties, right? Placing people where they need to be, and giving them something to be like, hey, look, you're in charge of van maintenance, you're in charge of wash detail business, you're in charge of the airport, That's so important. And as our business it rapidly gets bigger and more complex in every city. And that was something that, I noticed in Atlanta before we got there. I'm like, well, who's in charge of the airport? Well, we got all these guys. I'm like, dude, there's only one person in charge. And well, who's in charge of, hey, we're launching a new wash account. And well, Bill's in charge. Well, Joe was on the call where we talked about the new account. Why was Joe on the call and Bill launching it? Well, the schedule's changed. I'm like, well, we had like an important meeting on the call, and there was some client specific things that, Joe needs to know that he didn't because Bill was on a call, right? And so, again, you've done a very good job of that in Atlanta, giving guys lanes to operate in and specific responsibilities. And it's amazing how fast things change and how performance really skyrockets when that stuff happens. And so kudos to you and thanks for all the hard work. You talk about it like it's easy. I know there's been a little sweat and some of that stuff and a lot of hard conversations. So good stuff. So tell me about Kris Marshall after work, right? So a couple things. How do you balance like work and life, like work and home life? How do you do that? And then like when you're at home, what are you doing? What's like the what's fun and relaxing for Kris Marshall, and what do you do? What are you doing on Saturday at 2:00 or something?
Yes, sir. Well, when I get home, I have a 5-year-old, and he thinks I'm the most amazing Lego builder. So usually when I get home, he even went and
nice
mom to buy a 300-piece set, and he acts like he's reading the instructions. He takes all the pieces out, and then by the time I get there, he hands them over to me. He was like, "Fix it," and I'm like, "I'm not that guy." Right, but but I'm not going to tell no 5-year-old that I'm not that guy. So I get right to it and I start building that. But just my work-life balance, I just know that you got to have a cutoff time. I already care about the job and I love it. If I do have a call late, I will pick it up. But my cutoff time is around like 9:00. That's when it's like it can wait till the morning unless the CPU's on fire, you call or Kevin call. We're okay. But even on the weekends, I'm brand new to Atlanta, so I'm loving seeing new places. I'm a movie guy, so I've been going to see movies, and I love to eat also. So I'm trying all kind of new restaurants and just spending time with the family. Want to go to a Braves game. Sadly, I will be attending some Falcons games this year. They're sorry, but
nice.
It is what it is. But yeah, that's just my work.
It's okay.
So that's just my work-life balance. Like you got to know when.
Yeah, and yeah, nice. Yeah. So a couple things, right? So if you're a manager listening, you need to like have a schedule and stick to it for yourself. Like don't, plan your week, plan your life, and take care of your family. Like you get a lot of flexibility as a leader at Spiffy to go run your own ship and craft your own schedule. And if you're effective at time management, then it's a very satisfying place to work. If you are lousy at time management, then it's going to be a painful place to work. And a guy like Kris Marshall is going to take your job because they can go manage it. I will say thank you to Kris Marshall for not highlighting the fact that he's a Duke fan. I found this out recently. As a Tar Heel fan, I tend to talk a fair amount about Tar Heel basketball. The football team, like I sort of keep my mouth shut. Like it's a coin toss every Saturday. But for the most part, Tar Heel basketball, especially last year, I might have thumped my chest just a little bit late in the season. And Kris has been very quiet about that, which he let on earlier in the day to me that he's a big Duke fan, which I did not know. So I will add him to the list of people I hate during basketball season, or at least I love to give a hard time about. And we'll have a healthy back and forth about Duke Carolina basketball. Whole new cast of characters up there these days. It's like a new century up in Central North Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
So what's next? So on the home front, like you guys got you got the beautiful family, you got vacation planned, or what's going on? Where's the next trip?
Yes, sir. Going to Cancun this year for my birthday. It'll be after Thanksgiving, but that's the next trip for.
Nice.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That's the next thing, and then
You and the family. Nice. Excellent.
Mhm.
Excellent. So what questions do you have of me as we wrap this up?
No real questions, but I do want to say go Blue Devils. And if we could do the March Madness pool, I remember at one point in time we were doing like the March Madness, fill the brackets out. If we could start that back up, I would enjoy
Yeah,
that.
we could.
Mm-hmm.
I will commit to we will do a March Madness bracket this year. I will tell you, I didn't do it last year. I had sort of like I don't know. Beginning of the season, I was a little out of sorts, and then it was unclear that it was going to be as. Not that I shouldn't want to do March Madness, regardless of how good the Heels were, but the season was a little surprising, I think, to everybody. But we will spin that up this year, and maybe we'll have a management team bracket. We'll get there's some software out there, but we'll go run a spiffy March Madness and put something. We got to figure out what would be like a really good prize for the winner. I don't know. I'm sure you guys want to have me come to your city and like do push-ups until my freaking head explodes or something. But we'll figure something out there. Great suggestion for the.
I would love for you to come to Atlanta with a Duke Blue Devil.
Wow, I might.
That would be like that. Yeah.
Oh. Okay. All right. Fair enough. We that's a challenging. That's a fairly painful sort of loss. I appreciate that. That's about as bad as it gets. Me at least.
Well, I had to deal with y'all beating my coach on his last year.
All right.
So I think that's more painful than anything.
Dude, that was like the best game of my life. It was like it's certainly the best game of the 21st century for me, for sure. All right, man. Hey, Kris, thank you for taking time out of your day and sharing some of your personal life and telling us about your management and leadership career at Spiffy. Kris Marshall is the recent new general manager of one of our largest cities, Atlanta, Georgia, and he's crushing it down there. My name is Carl Murphy, the president and co-founder at Spiffy, and we're out to change the world, change how people care for their cars, both consumers and fleets, and create an enormous amount of opportunity for guys like Kris and myself. So come join. If you're fired up by the call and you're excited, come find us online, come find us on Indeed and join the team. Or if you think it's right for somebody, let somebody know about it. We'd love to have you. There's all kinds of opportunity here, and we're fired up to have great people who believe in the same things we do. So thank you, Kris, and please give my best to your